Good evening and welcome to the December 20th meeting of the Westborough Planning Board. Happy holidays to everyone. I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded. We have a busy agenda, but several continuances to discuss. I'll read the agenda. We have a continuation of the public hearing for special permit 2022-3 Stone Incorporated at 80 Turnpike Road. Preliminary subdivision plan for 48 Flanders Road, a continuation of the public hearing for 182 Turnpike Road site plan application, a public hearing for 165 Flanders site plan review application, a continuation of public hearing for 190-212 Oak Street site plan application, continuation of public hearing for earth moving permit 25 Gleason Street, a continuation of public hearing to modify commercial component, a special permit TOV 2014-1 for Village Commons at 1 Gleason Street, and an A&R plans for 12 Union and 57 to 59 Brigham Street. Before we begin, I would just like to acknowledge that our illustrious town planner, after 30 years of service to the town of Westborough, has officially announced his retirement as of the end of March. We will
You guys can all relax now.
be forming, we will be forming a search committee in our struggle to replace him. So I want to thank him.
Say again? Yeah.
Before we get into the agenda, I want to discuss our schedule for January because that may impact when we continue some of these hearings too. If everybody could look at your calendars. We have a January meeting scheduled for January 3rd, which is the day after New Year's Day, but most people have the 2nd off of work. Does anybody have a conflict with the 3rd?
Third still, it works for me.
You have a conflict on the 3rd? Okay. Since Hazel's not here, I don't know exactly what to do. If you can't make it and she has a conflict, then we're in trouble. Jim, what are our options then to move it to the 9th? We have too much going on to go down to one meeting.
So you may have a conflict with the Master Plan Implementation Committee on that evening. So if you move to the 9th, you'll have to move
the
that
10th.
meeting. So
The 10th.
you might want to look at either a day later in that week, the first week, or a day in the next week.
Well, I can meet any time that week, or we could just keep it on the 3rd and assume that Hazel's going to be there. She's pretty reliable.
I can make the 3rd.
Okay, why don't we keep it on the 3rd then? And if there's an issue, we'll have to scramble to, some of us can at least meet to continue the meetings. I think we need 3 people to continue. Is that?
As long as it's not a special permit, you only need a majority. If it's a special permit, you need a super.
Okay. All right. Can you or Kristen make a note to check with Hazel right away tomorrow and
Will do.
confirm that she'll be able to make the 3rd? Okay. Let's proceed as though the 3rd and the 17th are our regularly. We do have an extra Tuesday in January too. And I don't know if that, if we could go.
That's a good thing.
We could go 17th and, well, why don't we just, let's stick with the 3rd. All right, I think we'll be able to get 4 people there. All right, first item on the agenda is a continuation of the public hearing for special permit 2022-3 Stone Incorporated, 80 Turnpike Road.
Mr. Chairman, if I could interrupt you before you get too far into that.
Okay.
We do have an A&R plan. I'd like to take that up front because I know Randy Waterman is here right now.
Okay, so let's turn to the A&R plan at 12 Union and 5759 Brigham Street. Do you want to you have any remarks on this, Jim?
Sure, yeah, really quickly while Randy's got, oh, you probably already have it up, right?
Kristen, is this in our Dropbox?
Digital plan.
So this plan, Mr. Chairman, what this plan is this is changing, adjusting 3 lot lines at the former Bay State abrasive site. As you know, Bay State itself address is 12 Union Street. That's one of the properties listed here. Then Brigham Street goes out the back. And when the town approved the renovation, reconstruction of Bay State to Bay State Commons, we made Brigham Street a dead end. At that time, a cul-de-sac was laid out so that in the event that Brigham Street was discontinued, we would have a cul-de-sac that would be adequate for public safety. That cul-de-sac is shown on this plan. But what this plan is about is changing the frontage of the 3 lots along the cul-de-sac. And Randy Waterman of WDA Associates is going to walk you through those changing frontages. But it only involves the access to the rear lots and a small amount of frontage for the side lot at Bay State Commons. Go ahead, Randy.
Thank you. Good evening. We brought this GIS map just to help.
Randy, could you just name a name and title? I know.
Randy Waterman, WDA Design Associates.
Thanks, Randy. Sorry about that.
That's all right. So this GIS map is just really for some of the people that weren't here when we redid the Bay State Commons, the former Bay State abrasive property. And so I'll just show you generally the location of where the lots are on here, and then we can jump to the 3 plans that are the A&R plans themselves. So on this map over on the left side, that's the rotary right there. And then this area of land right in here, there's 22 acres, and that's where all the Bay State abrasives building was, and that was replaced with the retail center. So Roach Brothers, for instance, is in this large block here. The BSC Sports Club is back here. Our office is up here in the corner next to Tavolino. And then as you come down Brigham Street, this is the cul-de-sac location that Jim was mentioning. These lots, which seemed rather strange, that's come back and extend back here. This one, G4, was really to get the open space for this lot. The lot line comes back here, wraps around and comes up here. So this G4 is 50 acres in total, but it has frontage along Brigham Street. But the next 2 lots, B1 and C3, are also shown on our A&R plan. And B1 is 20 acres, C3 is 18 acres. And so this is the rear warehouse, the last building that you get to as you drive back here. But just for reference purposes, when you come from the cul-de-sac down from the rotary down to the cul-de-sac, it's still 2 miles to go to the back of the property till you hit I-495. So all of the land on the south side of the railroad tracks is part of the Bay State abrasive property. So this whole property here is 250 acres. But the piece we're dealing with tonight essentially are this 88 acres up here in the front, 50 acres on lot G4, 20 acres on B1 and C3. And the changes to the lot lines are essentially right at this cul-de-sac, and then just the change to these necks that come back here and a little change at this location. But I can show you on, if we jump to we have 3 A&R plans just because of the scale of the site. As Jim mentioned, when the Bay State abrasives property, when we did the site plans to convert that industrial factory to the new retail center, it was decided at one point that the town wanted to separate Green Street from Brigham Street, and so the roads were divided, and there's a sound wall between the 2 areas. So when you come down to the end of Brigham Street, at the time, it was left that you would be able to drive down this long driveway to that back warehouse. The cul-de-sac was created, and then in 2010, the planning board and the selectmen decided that they wanted to create enable the ability to put a turnaround here. So they took this right-of-way by a taking in 2010, and they left these 2 lots with just the roughly 50 feet of frontage that they had on the cul-de-sac. And so now when we're coming back, many, many years later and trying to create and adjust these 3 lot lines, we decided it made sense at this point in time is to widen the frontage along the cul-de-sac for this lot B1, widen the frontage along the cul-de-sac for this lot C3, and the Bay State site, the Bay State Common site you can see here has 422 feet of frontage over here along Brigham Street. So it has more than enough frontage. Each lot only needs 125 feet of frontage in this zone. So those are the changes at Brigham Street, is really just widening these 2 necks that come out to the street so that they are now both conforming lots, which they are not currently today. And then as we start to work our way towards the back of the site, these 2 parcels were both 50 feet wide in the past. And if you can maybe go to the next sheet, Jerry, the warehouse building that we showed at the center of the property, number 57 Brigham, they have tenants in this building now, and they have, a pallet storage location here. So since they were changing lot lines, the owner of this building asked if we could push these lines over closer to the railroad tracks slightly so that most of this land where he's storing materials for his building would remain on his actual piece of property. So this line used to run up in this location. So we've moved this lot line to make his lot, which is number 57 Brigham Street, larger. And in doing that, these 2 lines just shifted over to the north slightly. So you can't really tell from the look of the shape of everything what's changed on this plan, but these 2 narrow necks just got slightly narrower, and this land got taken from C to added to lot B, and therefore these 3 lots that I show you are the total changes on this plan. But ultimately minor shifts to a few lot lines, but increasing the frontage on each lot so they're all conforming lots today. You can flip to that last sheet if you want, and then this just shows the back end of the lots. We're not changing anything on this plan, but just to show where they are. We've created a new access and utility easement that runs from Brigham Street all the way to the back here of the end of lot G4 so that all the lots can continue to share that access easement as they have done for, it's close to 30 years now.
Any questions from the board? No. All right, I have no questions. Jim, anything?
No, I reviewed the plans with Randy a couple weeks ago when he first came up with this, and I'm fine with it.
Well, I do have one question. Are they do we have any proposed construction on these, or is this purely?
Construction on these?
Yeah.
The nearest construction, let's go back to the last sheet. Just beyond the warehouse, you've probably seen some machinery heading back there, but on lot C3, you can see the outline there. I'll show you let's see, this line here. Right now, they are actively in the process of capping the last landfill on the property. So that line right there is the limit of the approved DEP landfill. So it's beyond the area that's being changed here, but that is a construction site that's ongoing right now, and they are actively closing that, as I say, capping it.
Yeah, I guess my question has to do with, I don't want any more trucks coming through there or coming out of there. And are we going to end up with another industrial building?
No, they certainly can't build on the landfill. I mean, the most they could ever hope to do someday would possibly be a solar project. But other than that, this is no change to building 57. He's got EFCO and one of the power companies fully leasing the building. So no changes to the travel in or out of the site.
Okay. All right. Again, that has nothing to do with the A&R, just my own curiosity.
That's fine.
So, do we have a motion on this?
You have a motion on the bottom of page 2. There's a correction. It's 57 and 59. The motion, it says 59 and 59.
I move that the planning board approve the A&R plan for 0 Ruggles
Nope.
Street.
No, the address is 12 Union, 59 and 57 Brigham Street.
Oh, okay.
It's a typo there.
Over here.
So the NR is for 12 Union Street and 5759 Brigham Street.
A&R Plan 12 Union Street, 57 and 59 Brigham Street. I move the planning board approve the A&R plan for 12 Union Street and 5759 Brigham Street entitled Approval Not Required Plan of Land Lots B1, C3, G4, 57 and 59 Brigham Street, and 12 Union Street, drawn by WDA Design Group dated 12/14/2022, consisting of 3 sheets.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? That's 4-0 in favor. Jim signs that, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, now, back to the agenda. Thank you, Randy. Continuation of public hearing for special permit 2022-3 Stone Incorporated at 80 Turnpike Road. Do we have the attorney and Mark here? Okay, great. Jim, any comments on this before we begin?
Just to bring the rest of the board up to speed, we were able to visit the site at 80 Turnpike Road. We viewed both the exterior of the building and the interior of the building, including the area where stone cutting and fabrication operations would take place, interior to the building. We, as you know, Chairman Silverberg accompanied me and Member Pizzoni also. So there were 3 of us at the site, and that was last Thursday afternoon. I think it was morning, actually, last Thursday morning. And I will leave it to the board then to explain their impressions of the site.
Well, the building is not entirely a cement block, and we talked to the owner, and he's agreed to put some soundproofing and, other insulation on the back wall. I think it's a pretty noisy location just because of Route 9. I know John had the opportunity to visit the owner's, the applicant's current facility during hours of operation, and I think, if you're willing, John, to talk about the noise or lack thereof, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think it was the owner's operation. I don't know if it's a building that you own or it's tenanted by another similar operation. During the daytime, minimal noise coming from the facility while they're cutting the granite slabs. So with soundproofing, or don't call it soundproofing, call it insulating the back wall at 80 Turnpike, I think would solve any issues of noise coming from the facility. But the noise coming from the one that I toured was minimal.
Yeah, I think the only comment I would have to add to that would be that back loading bay, if you could keep it closed when it's not actively being used, because that might be an area where sound could escape. And then I'd like to keep some type of look-back provision in the final decision, just so that we can revisit this if there are, if it's not what we expect from a noise standpoint, at least.
Is that okay with the applicant?
Yeah.
What would you want for a look-back period? We usually do 6 months when we do something like that.
Well, I think John made the point of, was it a year, just so that we get a full season?
Okay,
So I would
that
say
makes sense.
a year after occupancy. That way, if he gets occupancy in,
Sounds good.
anyway, if he gets occupancy in May, then 6 months doesn't really get him a winter season. And I think that's important to have. So let's say 1 year. Everybody's good with that.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
It's probably picking at hairs, but when you get your occupancy, do you intend on commencing operations at the same time? Or are you going to get occupancy and then 6 months later start doing the work? Because that also changes. If they're getting occupancy and then starting work 6 months later, then you don't get the full year of operation to understand how the sound is coming. So,
We do intend to start pretty much right away.
all right.
There is going to be renovation on the inside of the building to take down part of the second floor. I think John and Mark and Jim all saw it when they were there. So the back half of the building is going to become 1 story instead of 2 stories.
But that will take place prior to the certificate of occupancy, right?
Yes,
Yeah, so.
absolutely.
So I think if you could write the look back to one year after the final occupancy is issued, or I guess at least, yeah, the final occupancy, let's say.
Could I just ask, so in that period of 1 year, at the end of that 1 year, what is it that you're saying should be done?
I think we should,
Are you saying another
I think we should have
inspection?
you in and say, either we've heard, we'll hear from the building commissioner and town planner at the time that we've had either no noise complaints or, assuming that's the case, then that'll close the book on the whole thing.
Okay. All right. And
If we have noise complaints, we might invite him in at some point prior to that year, and we'll have, I don't know if we'll have to, how we'll word that in the permit, but we might invite him in prior to 1 year to talk about additional soundproofing measures.
And the architect did propose the type of insulation that would go in that we sent to Jim this afternoon. Jim, did you get my email with that
They
information?
have a copy of it.
Oh, they do? Okay, perfect.
And that reminds me, I know that everybody's doing their best to meet our deadlines and try and get us the information we need, but we do have a deadline of the Thursday prior to the meeting. It's very difficult for us to prepare for a meeting when we get a lot of documents the day of, or, we all have jobs. I can't necessarily, I personally can't put everything aside to review, dozens of pages on the day of the meeting. So it really is important that we get those. We try to give some leeway on that, but we do not guarantee that we're going to discuss a document that was received after that Thursday deadline.
Okay.
So, and again, that's not directed at you. That's
I understand.
multiple culprits on that.
Okay.
You know who you are. All right, Jim, what other questions do we have? I know we got engineering comments, and they don't seem to have any.
We received a letter from the town engineer stating that she was okay with the plan for the change of use. There would be water line adjustments and designs made at building permit. At that time, they would also address any drainage issues. The town engineer is here if you want to hear from Lisa.
I thought her letter was clear, so I don't think we need to, unless she has further comments, no, okay. All right, any other questions from the board? Okay, this is a public hearing. If anybody from the public wishes to speak on this, if you could just come up to the microphone and give us your name and address.
Thank you. My name is James Sullivan, 5900s Road, and I'm a direct abutter for this property. I spoke last time, and I appreciate the fact that you've done the due diligence, gone on site, evaluated. We thought it was corrugated. They said it was cinder block, so it's somewhere in between that. So it sounds like that's going to be remediated, and I think that would be an expectation or a hope on our part that that would be addressed satisfactorily. I looked at the current location. Online, I didn't get there. Current location is strictly industrial. It's an auto body shop. It's an auto repair shop that they abut, a landscaper, a car wash, self-storage, an ignition shop, Marlboro Recycling, the dump, Marlboro wastewater. So they're an industrial operator in an industrial environment today. From what I could tell, there are no residential abutters. So we can't compare apples to apples. So I'm only hopeful that the conditions you put in this are going to carry forward and help us to remediate anything that might come up later on. We have no way of knowing today. I appreciate the fact that you visited during working hours. So one thing that caught my attention, and I'm curious about how this will be disposed of. The name of the current location is, or the use of the current location is a fabrication shop, which we know, but a remnant yard. So that implies to me that a remnant yard says if they have debris or leftovers or samples or cuttings that aren't being sold or used, they're going to end up in the yard. And that concerns me from an aesthetic standpoint. So I'd like them to address what the remnant yard currently looks like. For anyone who visited, if you had any appreciation for how that appears today, but I'd like some kind of limits in terms of a junkyard next to my house.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you had a chance to look at the site plan. I'm not sure where exactly those remnants would be that wouldn't take up parking, and the building commissioner would enforce parking requirements on the site. So if there was debris stored in a parking space, he would have
It's
the
an
authority.
assumption on my part that they're not going to keep debris inside the building where they're doing operations. So I'd like that addressed in terms
I
of
think
how they would.
Jim, can we put some kind of, well, let's hear from the applicant. on
Yeah,
that.
I would hear from the applicant because they do have an area designated outside the building for display.
Okay, display versus remnants. I'm just thinking,
Sure.
I know myself, when I've done projects and I've got leftover plywood and different, it stays somewhere. And if it allows to accumulate, and they might sell it someday, 5 days down the road, now I've got a junkyard next to my house, and I really don't want that.
Understood.
Next issue is, I understand they're changing the location of the loading bay to the side of the building that faces the automobile dealer. The concern I have is the summertime, when it gets hot, and it's hot inside their building during operations. Are these doors going to be wide open so that the noise is escaping the building? So that's, again, nothing that I can predict or foresee, but I'm concerned about it.
Is the building air conditioned?
It is.
Okay, so I think in the summer they would want it closed to make use of the air conditioning.
Okay, well, it's something that I'll obviously being a direct abutter, I'm going to be sensitive to any changes in our current environment, and I'll want to report back to the town based on the conditions that you're putting. So the overall is that, obviously I'm objecting to a manufacturing facility coming in, abutting a residential neighborhood. They're industrial now, they're coming into a mixed-use area, obviously, but it has potential of disrupting the neighborhood. So that's the majority of what I wanted to state. Thank you.
Randy, go ahead.
Doesn't actually abut this property. He backs up across the street on Long Meadow, and he backs up to the HVAC company that's down at the bottom. So this building is abutted only by 3 other commercial buildings. No residential property touches this one.
Somehow I was notified as an abutter, so it may be semantics, but in the town's view, I'm an abutter.
Right, you get notified if you're within 300 feet of the property, but you're not an abutter, no.
Okay, all right, we don't need the back and forth. I understand you want to,
We hear the concern. We just wanted to make clear that he's not a direct abutter, but his
No.
property line is within 300 feet.
no, I understand that. John, go ahead.
Yeah, could the applicant show on their plan where they are planning to have their outdoor storage? for the
Yeah, I don't
material?
see it marked on here. Maybe I'm not reading it.
Because I know when we toured,
When you say storage, it's outside display, right?
yeah,
There's
outside
no-
display.
There's no permanent storage outside.
Right.
All the materials will be inside the building.
To the right of the new doors.
Down in this corner, is it? Yes. Yeah, so the plan was that they have metal racks that they set some of their slabs on, and the idea was that they would be able to place them down in this corner or potentially even further down, so that they could get access to them and get in and out of the building. So that's where the plan is right now. The dumpster is going to be still back in this corner, I believe, back here, and you'd still be using this overhead door, right? Yeah. So the dumpster location would be back here, and then I think his question was sort of on remnants. Some places you see they have a lot of that. I'm not sure, you don't sound like you would, or most of it will go in the dumpster.
Yeah, so I can address the remnant yard question. Remnant yard is an industry term. Right now, everything that we have is actually stored indoors. The current facility is roughly 7,000 square feet, which is what the space will be utilizing for the fabrication shop here. So we do have space indoors allocated for that. We intend to put a crane in the indoor space that allows us to utilize a tighter storage capacity inside and allows just better efficiency with moving the material. So for our intent, we intend to keep as much inside as we can. Some material will be on the display racks outside. We do, as a business, push to sell remnants because that is profit that's tied up, so we don't intend to keep material for a long period of time. We do have a practice of going through and filling a stone dumpster where all the scraps go with pieces that have sat for a period of time, just because we don't really care to pay to store it indoors for a period of time that extends the value of the material. But any scraps that are too small to have any kind of value on their own as a loose remnant would go into the dumpster in the location on the back by the loading dock. So remnant yard is just a loose term that's used in the industry. We use that to refer to it so that when potential customers are comparing one company to another, they understand what we're referring to, but it is actually stored indoors.
Go ahead, John.
So I assume the process is you're going to draft a decision, and then we're going to vote to approve it at the next meeting. Can we get either condition that they have to provide a plan that shows the exact bounds of that storage, or have them revise the plan to show that prior to the decision?
Can you do that, Randy? Can you make a note on the plan and send it to me, and I'll
Hatch
forward
an
it?
area, hatch an area where the limits of where those racks would be, so that
Absolutely, yep.
we have something on paper.
Yeah, the sooner you can get that to me, I can get comment
Yeah,
from the
and
board.
I'm concerned if it's going to be in a parking space, I just want to make sure we still are going to have enough parking to meet zoning.
Yeah, they have 20 extra parking spaces on site.
They do,
in the code, yes, and that's on the table on the plan.
Okay, great.
So we'll do that, we'll put together the exhibit and send that in.
All right, any other,
Yeah, just one more
Go
question
ahead.
related to that. That driveway behind, I'm assuming is going to be open for access the entire time? Racks won't be put there? The driveway between the property line and the
Correct, yeah.
building?
No, they would go most likely right in these spaces right here.
The HVAC company has containers at the very back of their lot. They need access.
all right, any other questions from the public? All right, do we have a motion on this?
What John was just referencing, here, Randy, would you just, the rear of the building, and just go south of the rear, and on a land, I believe it is actually on a Landco's property. Jim and John and Mark saw it outside. See, there is a sewer easement just above where you're pointing.
Right there, yep.
And either in the area of the sewer easement or south of that, which would be correct, down there.
Yep.
There were, I don't know how many trailers, at least 7 or 8 trailers. I didn't actually count them, but there were a lot.
Right.
And you're not going to be using those trailers, or you might be using some, but not all of those?
That's off his site.
No, none of those. Those
Oh,
aren't.
those are all Alanco's?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So
your-
that's
your lot
over
line is
his
right here.
boundary line.
That's the rear boundary line right there.
All right. But other than that, behind his building, people are going to be able to drive completely around.
Yeah, that won't change.
Alanco is the HVAC system that's back there, and they do fabrication, and they are a direct abutter across the street from both gentlemen who have spoken before.
Well, who owns all those trailers?
I believe they are owned by Alanco.
Yes, all these that are back here are Lanco.
Can we get some of those out of there?
You have to talk to them.
I think that's uglier than stone remnants, to be honest, but
Well, I don't think we have to worry about the stone remnants because it sounds like they're either going to be in the dumpster or they're going to be inside, or if they're big enough, they might be on the outside rack.
Well, I'm going to make a note to see if we can have a conversation with Elanco, and I mean, I'm not sure what we can do on that, but that seems, it
As you
was,
saw, they are at the base of a hill that then runs up to Hundreds Road.
all right. Again, that's nothing to concern your applicant, it's just I'm
Right.
making a note
Exactly.
for my own sense of propriety there. All right, any other comments from the public? Applicant, anyone? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move that the planning board continue the public hearing for the special permit application of Stone Inc. at 80 Turnpike Road to Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023 at 6:30 PM.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman? I know that no decisions are rendered until you're going to see the plan, where the rack is, and until you see the written decision. But I think I'd mention that the seller of the property is represented by an attorney who's putting, I'll just say, strict conditions
Yep.
on the sale. And so could I just ask at this point, we need to let him know,
Yeah.
based on what you've heard today, is there anything that is going to make anybody look negatively at this
Well,
application?
I was going to ask Jim to prepare a draft decision for our next meeting. I think
All right,
we've got the terms of that condition generally ironed out. Are you going to be able to
Yeah, it's,
distribute that to?
sorry. I think it's relatively simple.
Okay. All
There
right,
there are a
so,
couple specific conditions which we discussed.
well, I know we got a holiday coming up. I don't want to put you on the spot and
Yeah,
say.
Marshall and I will talk tomorrow.
Okay,
His client is eager. I'm sure Marshall's eager too.
okay. All right, so we'll have a draft decision and get that circulated
And there's,
before the new year, I guess, because.
and there's no confusion. We know the doors are to be closed, the large bay doors are to be closed, and that the work's going to be done inside. There will be specific insulation that is both fire, thermal, and sound insulation.
Marshall,
And we're gonna show
we
you.
have a motion to continue.
I
This
understand.
feels more
Okay.
like argument, and I have to address the motion.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That's 4-0 in favor of continuing that hearing to our next meeting. Okay, thank you for coming in. Appreciate it. We'll see you in the new year. Great. Next item on the agenda is a continuation, the preliminary subdivision plan for 48 Flanders Road. And I believe, are we continuing that? No, that's not one of the ones we're continuing. You guys ready to?
This is not a public hearing.
This is just a preliminary subdivision discussion. So who wants to address the board on this? Or actually, Jim, do you have preliminary comments on this?
So as you recall, at the last meeting, we discussed the plan, the layout, the number of lots, the roadway, some engineering concerns. We have since received comments from the fire department, the Board of Health, engineering department. There are some concerns about one of the lots on septic, making sure that that lot, it's the second lot, Lot 2C is shown on the plan, perks, because there needs to be a second deep hole. There is already a spot that perks, but the Board of Health requirements under Title V require a second perk site as well. So that lot will still need to be perked for the board to move forward to determine that they have 3 lots. Additionally, the fire department was concerned with the slope on the road in making sure that the fire truck can actually get up a 9% grade, because when you're coming along a roadway that has a 2% or less grade, turning onto a road at 9%, it's difficult to achieve a 2% leveling area. Our subdivision rules and regs require a 2% leveling area between new subdivision roads as they transition with the street, and that leveling area has to be 100 feet long. Under the current design, they can't achieve that leveling area. So the fire department is concerned about fire trucks being able to navigate that street, given that slope. If they cut the slope back or reduce the elevation on the road to create that leveling area, it will mean steeper side slopes on the side of the road and further grading. So I know that the engineer, Barry here from WDA Group, will discuss that this evening for the planning board.
Okay, gentlemen.
How you doing? Barry Atchison with WDA Design Group. As Jim mentioned, yes, we have the conventional design with the, go to the profile of the existing. Profile. Again. That shows the 1.9 or less than 2%. This is the conventional design. And entering or exiting from Flanders Road into the property with a 6% proposed slope of the remaining part of the road and finishing up at around 5. Is that 5? I can't see that too well. Somewhere in there. I think it's 1.5, 1.1. That is the conventional plan.
Barry, could you just explain the lines on the plan so they understand?
Yep. Andy, do you have your pointer? Left here at what's station 00, just to the left is Flanders Road. Our proposal is to come in with our subdivision. It's 600 feet long, down to 600. Plan on coming off 1.9% pitch, and with the requirements for roadway design and pitch and grade so that you don't bottom out vehicles and so forth. There's a vertical curve in here, pitching up to 5.9% pitch, or just under 6, and then leveling off to the end. Up here at the end is the cul-de-sac portion of the road. Our proposal, if you go to the other proposed, with the waivers, is to maintain 2% for about 100 feet, vertical curve up to 8.9%, and then back up here where the cul-de-sac would be. So we're not asking for very much waiver here. I still think we're under 3%, and the requirement of 3% leveling area coming into the driveway or into the roadway.
Where are the proposed driveways in relation to this?
Let's go to the, this is the proposed waiver.
Are they all going to come off the cul-de-sac?
One's coming off right here, and the other one's the top of the driveway, and then over this direction. I think it's shown on that. There you go. Driveway coming up into the first house.
So that first house will be, I'm sorry, that first house will be coming out on the slope?
That'll be coming out on the slope, but it's less than 3% entering into it with a leveling area, then pitches up a little bit, and then you've got another level area into the driveway garage.
But when they come out onto the road, they're going
3%.
straight downhill.
3% there onto a,
Right, their driveway is at 3%.
Yep.
But the slope of the road
the road
is
will
not
be
3%.
at, no, it's at 9 or 8.9.
Right at that point.
Correct.
So they're coming at 3% and then,
Yep, but it still meets your regulations as far as where the driveway is in your level area prior to entering.
right, but does the 9% meet our regulations?
What's that?
The 9% meet our regulations?
Yeah, 10%.
I guess I'm just concerned with somebody coming down the hill on a slippery slope and, somebody coming out of that driveway, but it's a privately maintained road.
Yes.
Just as a clarification, the maximum allowed grade in a conventional subdivision is 6%. You're asking for a waiver to match the open space community regulation. So I want, for the board's information, because John asked this question, The maximum slope under a conventional plan is 6%. The maximum slope under an open space, this is not an open space, this is conventional, is 10%. So that's why he's asking for the waiver.
Well, geez, you could go for an open space subdivision, and then you wouldn't have to ask for a waiver. And then I think the neighbors would appreciate that. All right, any other questions from the board on this?
Are they looking for feedback on the comments, or are we just
Yes,
hearing the comments?
please. Feedback.
So personally, I've worked with fire departments on certain subdivisions and that kind of thing, and I'm very pro residential fire sprinklers when the fire department asks for residential fire sprinklers. So given the challenges with accessing these properties, especially with the slope and potentially in winter conditions, I think I would not be comfortable granting a waiver without having an assurance that there are going to be residential fire sprinklers.
I did talk with the proponent, and he is amenable to the idea.
Questions, anything else? Yeah, I mean, I echo that, so. Other than that, I think, again, until we actually grant the waiver and vote on it, I can't make any guarantees on anything, but at this point, I think you can move forward with this. Jim, any comments?
I'm glad that question was asked, because you're correct, the driveway slope in combination with a steep roadway slope is an unsafe condition. But I'm even more concerned about the slope along the road. If you can't obtain the waiver, the leveling area is going to be difficult for him to achieve. So it's a balancing act. If you grant the waiver, he'll have a better road for the fire truck. If you don't grant the waiver and you don't need the sprinklers, he'll have a worse situation for the fire truck. I think he's got a bad situation for the fire truck either way, personally. But this is an earth removal project as much as it is a road construction project. When he showed that road, the upper line, the upper dashed line, is the road existing terrain, is the site's current terrain. So how many cubic yards will you remove here? Do you know?
I don't know.
It's going to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cubic yards of fill. So it's more of an earth-moving project than it is a construction project. Either way.
All right, I don't think there's any other questions from the board, so.
I'm sorry, one other thing.
Oh, please.
And I know Barry's going to get to this. They do need to do an additional test pit, because right now they only have 2 lots that are proven. One would be on sewer, one would be on septic. Today, they wouldn't get a permit from the Board of Health for the number 2 lot. So that really needs to occur before we can approve this preliminary plan, because right now they don't have a yield. You're going to have to give them a waiver for the slope on the road. They've asked for 2 or 3 other waivers, side slope on the road for the lots, grading, and a couple other waiver requests. But right now, you only have 2 lots. So he needs to prove that before he can move forward. The waiver's ineffective until he proves that lot. So I guess my question to the applicant would be, do you intend to do test pits now? What is your intention?
As soon as I can, I would imagine.
Okay, so just make sure the Board of Health witnesses those pits. I know you know that.
Okay, so we'll see you back in here with a full application for a subdivision once those test pits are approved out. All right. Anything else? Okay, why don't we move on to the next item? Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, we have a continuation of a public hearing for 180, 182 Turnpike Road site plan application. Thank you all for being patient.
Mark, do we need to continue this or no?
No,
No, it's not a public hearing.
It's not. It's discussion.
As of right now, they don't meet our regulations. They don't have a plan. When they have a plan, then you'll have to worry about the time deadline.
Okay, so 180, 182 Turnpike. Jim Robbins, do you have any comments before we start?
You know that at your last meeting, proposed mitigation was presented by the applicant. I know the board addressed most all of those issues and was, I would say, positive towards those proposals. They ranged from site lighting to light prevention, spill onto the abutters, for providing a wall, an 8-foot wall on the south and the southwest corner of the building, landscape improvements. We talked about one-way entrance to the westerly driveway, entrance only, no exiting and entering on the easterly side. We talked about the relocation of the dumpster pads. We talked about the circulation off of the roof down to the lower level. One thing we talked about that wasn't settled is the car wash and recirculated water. We talked about many issues, and I know the board has seen those. You have them in writing. I think it would be appropriate to pick up on that. We also have not heard from the abutters, Walker Meadow.
All right. Who wants to start? Marshall?
Yes, happy to. Jim summarized it very well. We feel that we've made,
Marshall, I'm sorry to interrupt. Just name and.
okay, Marshall Gould, attorney for the applicant.
Thank you.
Thank you. At the last meeting, Ashley actually did the presentation, PowerPoint, so everybody could see it. And I think the changes that were made were generally well received. We had indicated that we felt those were the changes that the applicant could and was willing to make. At the same time, we understood that there were some engineering issues to be resolved between the town engineer and the applicant, and we wanted to make sure, and the board wanted to make sure, that the fire department was okay with the final site plan, very little of which was changed as it affects fire. At this point, we have received assurance from the fire department that they are all set. Very minor modifications have been made up in the very front of the building. And in terms of the engineering, I will let Randy address those issues.
Yes, we've also received a letter from the town engineer, and I think she's present tonight, indicating that I think they are satisfied with the plans and the information that's been sent to them as well. And we've, as always, have offered that if there's other tweaks or discussions or edits that need to be talked about as we go forward and go to the building permit, we're happy to do that at any time.
So with that being the case and subject to comments of the board or whatever questions you might hear tonight, it is our hope and expectation that the board will be able to finish the input of information tonight and hopefully get a general sense of a decision so that Jim can write up a decision and that we can hopefully get it approved at the next meeting.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Jim, did you have any comments? I know there were a couple.
I still haven't heard a decision on the recycled water.
We agreed that we'll put that in.
That's great. Thank you very much. The town appreciates that because all of our car washes use recycled water, and we want to save our resources for those that are needed. Car washes don't need fresh water every time. Also, we'd had a question about landscaping and snow storage. Did you have an opportunity to find additional space for snow storage?
Where did these questions from? Something in writing or?
Yeah, so no, it was from me. So I can maybe talk about it a little bit more. So I'm looking at sheet C2.
Yeah.
The layout materials plan. It shows snow storage with arrows. I don't see any hatched area. And I'm just a little concerned that if that whole area is going to be used for snow storage and there's going to be landscaping, any snow storage is going to kill the landscaping, which is going to effectively negate the shielding or screening coming from that area.
Can we go to?
So you're looking down in the clouded area at the bottom of the plan near the, what is that, the above ground fueling tank. It just shows, 2 arrows for snow storage. And the temporary snow storage is in this blocked out area on the parking lot, which I assume once that fills, you're gonna put it into the grassed area.
So you're referring to the bubbled area on the left?
Yes, but the bubbled area, I'm assuming, does not apply to the snow storage. That's a change to the plan.
So I guess I'm
Are you on the
unclear.
far southwest? I'm just not sure which snow storage area you're referring to. Okay, southwest area.
2 hours. That's just saying that that whole area is snow storage. But if that's where the landscaping is going to be to screen for the neighbors, any significant snow storage could potentially kill the landscaping, no?
The snow storage, yeah, I mean, we were asked to expand the area of snow storage, so what we were saying is in those areas, we would pull the landscape back as far as we could to the tree line, and then that would create the biggest areas possible to place snow in that area. But obviously, we can't have and would not allow people to be dumping, I mean, they'd be dumping snow or pushing it from the parking lot over the edge. There's no way they can go 40 feet back from the edge of the parking lot to put snow where the landscape would be. I mean, they'd have to drive down the slope and dump it on the trees.
Hey, can you zoom out a little so we can see where the lot line is?
The lot line, you can see the double black line, so that's where the tree line is. And then if you go another 60 feet to the south of that, on the opposite side of the rail bed, that solid black line, that's where the lot line is.
I was talking more the screening near the parking lot.
Right.
The trees and planting near the
Yeah,
parking lot. So
that's where the double black line is?
Yeah, so if I can go, so here's the parking lot. This would be an open area with landscaping along this back edge of it. This is showing that we were asked to show where the tree line is for the clearing. So this would be where the edge of the trees would remain in place. All of this area was wooded. This is the actual trail line, or the former trolley line. So the property line for this property is back here. So the easement that the town would be receiving would cover this whole strip in here, and presumably the trolley line would be at the center where it's currently open, and that's where trolleys, passed through the site previously. So again, if we go to the parking lot, when snow plowing is pushed down here, they will be able to push it over the edge along this edge in here, but we're going to have landscaping back here, so there's no way they can, they won't be able to drive over the curb and push snow 40 feet back.
Yeah, but I'm looking at the landscaping plan, the planting plan, and there's plantings in that area where the snow storage is going to take place.
Yeah, I think we said once we had made this bigger that we would push that further away from the parking lot, those plants. We're not going to reduce the number of them. Do you have that plan, the landscape plan there, Jerry? So you can see in this location, those parking spaces are 9 feet wide. And if vehicles or plows are pushing snow over the embankment here, that's over 40 feet away from the edge of the pavement and the curb. So there's a curb line here. So as they're pushing snow down this way, they'll be able to push it over the edge, but it would be stored in this area, but it would not be able to get back here. So this is approximately 40 feet back from the edge of the curb.
Right, but that's not what the plan shows.
That is the plan.
No, the other plan, the layout materials plan, shows snow storage in that whole area. I would rather see a hatched area on the plan saying snow storage is just going to take place right at the edge of the parking lot.
So essentially, the hatched area on this one, you want that revised. So we don't show, you're saying no.
I don't think you
snow-
need to revise this plan. I think you need to revise the layout materials plan that shows where the snow storage locations are going to be.
Okay, so the snow storage essentially then would be this shaded area. And what you're saying is you don't want to see it go back here, so it's confusing that somebody might push snow back where the plants are.
Right. I want the building inspector to be looking at during the winter, is snow where it's supposed to be, or is it farther back?
Okay.
And killing landscaping.
Yeah, that's what this was intended. Okay, that's fine, perfectly fine, yes.
Any other questions from the board? Tim, did you have anything else?
I wanted to note that we received responses from the applicant's engineer to both the fire department, multiple discussions. I appreciate that because it was a lot of work working with the fire department. There was probably 4 rounds, maybe 5 rounds of discussion, so thank you for that. Also, comment letters from the Board of Health. They responded to that. We also received comment letters from the building commissioner and the conservation department. The building commissioner responding for conservation since they don't have a conservation agent currently. We also received a letter from the town engineer, several pages, but the bottom line was that as long as the applicant agrees to the conditions and the review requirements of the town engineer, that she's fine with the planning board moving forward with the with the site plan review. And the town engineer is here this evening if you want to ask her any questions.
Anything further, Lisa? I don't have any. Do you have any further comments?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Sure.
So yes, so exactly what Jim said. The only thing I would add is we did get, I did receive comments back on my recommendations to you guys for conditions of approval from WDA. In their comments back, they did not necessarily agree with all the conditions, so it will be up to the board to decide which of my conditions that you will enforce, or if you will have all of them be a condition of our approval.
Lisa, can I ask you a question, though, or you may be able to give us some input. The two office buildings that were there presumably had higher sewer capacity than the proposed use?
No.
Is it, no? They're gonna.
And one of
okay.
them was on septic system still.
What's that?
One of them is on a septic system, the
Okay.
building on the west.
Okay. All right, so we're not going to be able to get any sewer capacity back from this project?
No.
Okay.
No, in fact, we'd be granting them additional capacity they didn't have before.
Okay, that answers that question. Thanks.
Just a second, Lisa, hold on. I'm going to keep you right there. Can you tell me which conditions are that the applicant is in dispute?
I don't have it in front of me, but if I recall, it was condition 1 on the increased inspections of the infiltration system.
Yeah.
And I believe the other one was that they did not necessarily agree to do camera work in the sewer line. I could be wrong.
No, I think that's those were two things that the applicant didn't feel that, were appropriate. And I think your condition was really that we would resolve this before they get a building permit. Is that?
No, it would be up to the board to,
If they
want that condition of approval, then
Okay.
you will have to do it. With that said, I can say that we had a second sewer overflow in the same section, that they would be contributing to this system, so it would definitely be in their best interest. Luckily for them, some downstream properties were made to camera those sections already, so it's already been greatly reduced on what I'd be asking them to camera.
Well, we don't want any sewer backups, that's for sure. We'll never hit the end of that. So I think it's safe to say that the infiltration inspections and camera work on the sewer line will be included
Actually,
in
the
our.
infiltration's for drainage.
Well, I know that, but we don't want any drainage issues given what's downhill from this project. So I think that's a reasonable request on engineering's part for both
more
of
to it because
those,
they're really.
unless anybody disagrees.
I agree.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, this is a different issue.
I see you feverishly discussing that. Is there any response?
As far as the cameraing of the line, we weren't objecting to cameraing at all. We were objecting to cameraing the entire line. We feel that that should be done proportionally to all of the users that share that line, not that it should just be our responsibility to do that entire thing. And then as far as the infiltration,
The inspections.
yeah, the additional inspections required for the infiltration, we've run the calculations for that infiltration, and we did additional infiltration tests. We feel that what's being requested is excessive. It's after every ½ inch of rain. That would basically be every rainstorm. We would have to have special people come out and open manholes and look in this underground storage system. And generally, the concern with infiltration is with open drainage bodies, mosquitoes accumulating, that sort of thing. We have an underground drainage system, so there would be no standing water that could breed mosquitoes. So we don't feel that that condition is.
Lisa, how often are these inspections and how long would those additional inspections go on? Or is that in perpetuity?
Says 6-month inspections for the first year and yearly thereafter.
Right, but the increased inspection, that would be standard, what you decided as a standard requirement. The additional one was because we had raised concerns on the drainage design. The applicant's engineer had several conversations with us and they disagreed.
So how many additional inspections are we talking? So for 6 months?
I do disagree that you're talking every so long. Also, especially since we do not, drugs during the summer. It doesn't have to be, those inspections don't have to be by a specialist. It could be by personnel trained at the facility. This report standardly done by employees of other companies. It's not, we're not asking for a professional engineer to stand on it. Part of that comment was to appease the conservation commissioners, chairman, and the commission's worries that the drainage design does not meet their standards. So part of that comment was to appease them.
Sure.
Be sure that it's up to 72 hours. We'd be fine with a year limit on it as long as everything's fine. And that could go on. If there's a problem, then that's what was meant by a professional engineer had to come in and evaluate the system. If the water is still standing after 72 hours or if there's any signs of failure.
I think if there's any signs of failure, we do want to get ahead of it. So I'd lean towards the cautious approach on this. Is there a reason the engineer is concerned about this drainage design, or is it a new technique, or?
I would actually just say it's a difference of professional opinions. The time contact consultant believes that there could have been some changes. But we agreed that with Waterman Design that there's no need to make them go redesign this whole thing. Originally, we wanted a redesign. We gave further review and said, you know what, if you guys are so confident that it's going to work, then let's give it a try and just watch it. And if it doesn't work, we change it.
Yeah, well, I agree with that approach. We need this to work. I mean, I realize it's better than what was there, but that doesn't mean, you know.
Particularly though, this is part of the ACDC with the environment. We're concerned.
Any further comments from the board? Any response to that?
We've talked to them, and the applicant really has to decide how they want to proceed. I mean, I can't, we've talked about it, and they feel like it's onerous, and so it's really a decision in the end. They just have to decide what they want to do if they want a decision, I think. I don't know how to advise them at this point anymore, but.
We understand what's being requested. We just feel that we hired an engineer to do calculations that the town has accepted previously. This is not he didn't invent the standard that he's using. So why are we being held to a different standard that his calculations aren't being accepted? Either they're accepted or they're not accepted. Why is there a
Well, I
difference
think
of how you calculate
I think the reason is because you have a residential neighborhood downhill from you that would suffer if this drainage system doesn't work. So I think that's a compelling reason. And, if you're so confident that it does work and you don't have to hire a specialist to monitor it and fill out these forms, I don't see that as being overly aggressive in our cautiousness. In our cautiousness, that's not a word. Caution. I see somebody, did you get up to make a comment, Barry?
Compared to what is currently there today, there's no detention, there's no treatment, there's no protection of the ACDC area nearby. So it's all flowing in there. We are providing a lot of detention, a lot of slowing down, a lot of storage, and a boatload more infiltration.
Sure, sure. And it's a lot of change, right? And anytime there's change, we need to make sure that that change is successful. And I think that a monitoring program that's maybe a little more aggressive than what the applicant likes is a reasonable request, because this is a big change. So I don't see why we wouldn't take the engineer's recommendation on that. John?
Do we have a cost associated with this? What's it typically run for these monitoring and these tests? Okay.
This did go to our third-party peer reviewer, so, I can't stand here and argue all the points that are being asked. So if they would like to, go back and go look at it and have the engineers talk this out some further, part of the agreement for the additional inspection was, we were being asked to hurry, get this approved through the process without any further delays. And in trying to do that, we came up with a compromise that we thought was fair. We can, arrange with the other engineer and still UDA to sit, rule into whatever additions that they have recommended.
Okay, well, I have no problem with you trying to get the engineers, believe me, I'm not going to sit in that conversation, but, you got, Marshall, go ahead.
To the board and to Lisa, right now it's saying perform inspections after all significant rainfall events of a ½ inch or more. I think part of the pushback from our level is that's an awful small amount of rain. I mean, we do get summer rainstorms that can be over an inch and sometimes 3 or 4 inches in a day. We could increase that to a more reasonable number. I think that we would have less of an issue.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Might be going a little off topic, but has the applicant shown any interest in contributing to the trail in the back other than the easement?
No.
And I don't think Lisa's request is unfounded. I think it's something that we should agree with and stand with.
I'm not sure they're related, but,
No, they're not, but I think it's,
all right.
Can I ask a question? Either Lisa or the applicant, do you know what the typical rainfall in a storm is? I know, Marshall, you just threw out some numbers, but do we have any, I tried looking, I couldn't find any historical rainfall information per storm, basically per.
Last summer, we didn't have any rains.
Right, I'm just trying to figure out, because I don't know of ½ inch, what it looks like in real time, and I don't know what our typical rainstorm is during a summer.
I would have to check and look at our articles, but the average was the recommendation of
All right, well, maybe we can get together and reassess whether ½ inch or 3/4 of an inch or what that appropriate, maybe an inch. I agree with John. I'm not really clear what constitutes a light rainfall and what, a shower or a deluge. Yeah, so here, again, I feel like we're at a point where I'm going to listen to the engineer's recommendation on this because I think it's a compelling issue. And if you can get together as engineers and work out an acceptable compromise or alternative solution, I'll listen to that at the next meeting. But for now, I don't see a reason to vary from that recommendation. I mean, I don't want to impose upon you, but I think it's an imposition if that drainage system fails as well. And it's a kind of a scale thing. Like I don't see it opening the manholes. It's not going to rain every day. All right. Okay. What else from the board? Anything? Jim, did you have comments?
I have no additional comments other than I want to hear from the neighbors.
Well, we'll hear from the neighbors, yeah. I just want to make sure we're all done. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this? Just name and title for the record.
Certainly. Good evening. My name is Edmund Alcock. I am counsel for the Village at Walker Meadows Condominium Trust. I believe you received a letter from me or two perhaps during the course of this process, and obviously have heard from Wayne quite frequently. Obviously, it's sort of a unique project for New England. I think I've referred to it as a sort of like a Florida design. What I would say for the condominium association is we would say that the December 6th amendment is an improvement from our perspective of what was originally there, as we believe it will, in all likelihood, alleviate the noise and the light pollution in the direct proximity of the back of the property. I mean, we can't, as a condominium association or a neighbor, we're not here to legislate aesthetics or design, but it's really that possible impact. And this design, it sounds like the applicants listened to us at least and addressed it in the rear of the property. The second issue we had actually, I think, was addressed by Mr. Gelsich quite adeptly. We are concerned that those 5 or 6 areas of plantings in the back actually show up on the plans in the area designed for snow removal. And we appreciate the board picking up on that and hopefully that's addressed before the next meeting. The only other comment we had also related to possible conditions. We wanted to we hope that one of the site plan conditions are the actual hours of operation, which I understand would be 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Again, merely because of impact in terms of light and noise. We had not really heard about the drainage issue before tonight, and I guess we would say that we would hope the board at least would require some level of monitoring, more aggressive if it has to be, and support the town's engineer, even if it's for a period of time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions from the public on this? Okay. So, Jim, I don't know of any other outstanding issues on this. I feel like we're at the point where you feel like you're ready to draft a decision on this?
Yes, but it will not be for January 3,
Okay.
in light of the other decision I'm drafting for January 3. I can work with Marshall in the interim. This is a much more complicated decision. I have a lot of conditions in my notes for this, and I want to make sure that I have a complete list of the plans. We did get an updated set of plans today. I thank you, because that was a lot of work. I just want to go through everything to make sure that the items we talked about at the last meeting are all included on the plans.
Okay, so are you suggesting we continue this to our second meeting in January?
Yes.
Okay, we have a request from the applicant to continue this to January 3rd, but we don't have a request to continue it to January.
I can change the date on that and initial right now.
You're comfortable with that timing?
Yes,
I
as
know you've-
long as, I would like to ask the board, we will meet with Lisa and we will come to some resolution based historically. Lisa's reason. We're
Can you
reasonable.
use the mic, Marshall? Sorry.
Lisa's been reasonable when we've met, and our clients being reasonable and working with Randy, I'm sure we can somehow find a resolution. Is, other than the items that are mentioned, the snow removal and securing the tree area that won't be damaged, and the drainage issue, does the board feel comfortable at this point with the rest of the project? I'd like not to piecemeal this and then come back and find other issues at the next meeting. Based on what I'm hearing, those are the two key issues.
Well, I think if we're instructing Jim to prepare a draft, I think that, it's probably
Sends the message.
to the point where we shouldn't expect any other issues
Okay.
unless something unexpected happens.
Okay.
Mark, can I ask a question before we move on from the drainage issue?
Yep.
And this is directed to Lisa. Is it reasonable to say to do the inspections at half an inch rainfall for the first year, and then after the first year, come back to the planning board to see if that amount can be revised to maybe an inch if there are no issues? And would that be amenable to the applicant if you did half an inch inspections for the first year?
I think our concern was anything even extending beyond a year, because there's traditional SWIP inspections required anyway every 6 months. So this is on top of that. So I would prefer something larger than half an inch if it's for the first year. If there needs to be a requirement, maybe an inch. We'd have to look at the historical rainfall in the area, see what makes sense. Our concern is having to have, our employees are not the sort of people that are just trained to open a manhole. We'd have to have somebody designated to do that and make sure they're not going to fall in the manhole while doing it.
Right.
It's a safety issue.
That's why I'm saying the compromise of doing inspections at a half an inch for the first year, and then coming back or meeting with the engineer after the first year, after the calendar year, and then reviewing that past year to see if maybe you can bump it up to an inch moving forward.
Yeah, John, I'm just not sure we need to come up with a compromise right this second. I think it's really up to the applicant and the engineering department to,
I think we can work something out and let Jim know, and hopefully it will be okay to the board. And if not, then the decision will be by motion amended to whatever the board feels appropriate. I mean, I think other projects that I've been involved in where Lisa and the engineer have worked together very well. And instead of taking all the time to do it here, I think if we were to talk with Lisa, and admittedly, we have Ashley or Nick coming up from Florida each time, but if we were to have a private meeting, they could be involved in a Zoom session and we could talk about it. And we could also maybe get more data on how often do we get a rainstorm of over a half inch and less than an inch. I'm sure we can get that information from the Weather Service. Having owned and run a golf course for 15 years, I can tell you, half an inch never bothered us. If you get over an inch, that's when the sand traps might fill up a little bit, or, when the ground might be too wet to go out, and that's where there's a lot of underground water. So the half inch to us was nothing. But Lisa may know more about it, and we'll talk to her, and we will come to an agreement.
okay. All right, so let's move this forward because I think we've heard from the public and Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, just one item. I know we're all in agreement on the B-wall plan, the easement shown on the plan. We're fine with that, the location of the easement. I just need an easement a document that we can record at the registry. And what I'd like is what we do in other properties where we receive easements is the easements are shown on the plan. When they're recorded on the plans at the registry. But I need the easement language because the town attorney will want to review that. And I'd like to have that to the town for review and approval prior to the CO. That's going to give you some time, but I wouldn't wait till, you're near a CO, because getting through the town council for approval and then recording takes some time. So I just want you guys to consider that. So what I would do is I'd write a condition that the easement document for the Bewalt Trail, as shown on the plans, would be created by the applicant, delivered to the town for review, and approved by the town prior to the CO.
And could I ask, who is the easement to? Is it the town inhabitants of the town of Westborough?
I would say so, to the public, to the general public,
Just like we do with
for the
the
purposes that we've discussed, foot, bicycle, ski.
Will there be more specific information as far as where on our property that easement is going? Because we've been told 20 feet, plus I think it was 10 feet for construction, but within the width of that back area, I don't know exactly where
If you want to actually build the trail, then you'll know exactly where it's going to go.
If it's prior to CO, we have plenty of time to work out the details.
Yeah, so Mr. Waterman did the feasibility study and the preliminary design for the trail. I'm sure he'll share that location with you. But the trail itself would be no more than 12 to 15 feet wide, but the area for construction, for laydown of materials, casting, et cetera, would need to be wider than that, but it would all be contained within the easement. So the old trolley line easement is quite wide, as you know, and it's all in your open space area. You're not doing any work there. So it won't interrupt your construction. It won't interrupt the operation of your site at any time, but it needs to be defined on the plan.
There were some dimensions, and maybe it was the first Bond response.
Yeah, we had a width. I'm just where on the plan so we can prepare the easement
Yeah,
appropriately.
it's just going to run from Park Street down to Carmax, and then they have width on the permanent easement is 20 feet, and beyond that, it's a construction easement.
Okay.
I understand. Yep. But I'm bringing it up now so that you have plenty of time to think and work on that.
All right. No other issues. We have a letter of continuance that Marshall, do I need to read this into the record?
Please.
Okay. Marshall, you're going to revise this? Sure.
Okay is a strong word, but yes, if you can't have it drafted by the 3rd. then
Okay
I
is a
don't have
strong
choice.
word. I don't think that's
Yeah, we'd prefer the 3rd.
17th of January. Well, it'll be our second meeting. All right, so we have a request for a continuance dated December 20th to the Planning Board, Town of Westborough. Attention, James E. Robbins, Town Planner, regarding 180-182 Turnpike Road, Westborough, Mass. Site plan review. The members of the Planning Board, we are scheduled for a continued public hearing for a site plan review application on 180-182 Turnpike Road on December 20th, 2022. Anticipating this matter may require another public hearing date, I respectfully grant the Planning Board additional time through January 17th for a continued public hearing to vote on a decision. Respectfully, Marshall A. Gould, attorney for the applicant. Do we have any further discussion on this? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I have a motion. First page. I move that the planning board continue the public hearing for the site plan review application of 180-182 Turnpike Road to Tuesday, January 17, 2023 at 6:30 PM as requested by the applicant.
Second.
Any discussion of that motion? All those in favor of that continuance? That is 4-0 in favor. That we'll need Hazel to sign a Mullen on that one?
Yes.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for 165. Thank you all for coming in. If Have a great holiday, everyone, and please take any conversations out to the hallway so that we can finish our business.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is a continuation, I'm sorry, not a continuation. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for 165 Flanders site plan review application. This does require me to read the legal notice into the record. Legal notice of the Town of Westborough for site plan review hearing pursuant to the rules and regulations relative to site plan review under Section 1240 of the zoning bylaws of the Town of Westborough. The Westborough Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, December 20th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. in the Great Hall of the Forbes Municipal Building, 45 West Main Street, Westborough, Massachusetts. The proposed project includes site improvements to portions of the existing distribution center site at 165 Flanders Road. The improvements include a new vehicle maintenance building and reconfigured fueling area, expanded employee parking area, and construction of a new 50,000 square foot warehouse. Any person wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place recited above to be heard. A copy of the application and plan are available for review in the Westborough Planning Board offices at 45 West Main Street, Westborough, Massachusetts, and the town clerk's office at 34 West Main Street, Westborough, Massachusetts, during regular business hours. And that is signed by the Westborough Planning Board, and that was published in December 5th and December 12th, 2022 editions of the Telegram and Gazette. I apologize, there were a couple typos in there, so I stumbled through that. But Jim Robbins, do you want to just introduce this?
Yes, I don't see the applicant. I don't see him out in the hall. If you give me a second, I'll go and see if I see the applicant in the hall.
Sure, take your time.
No one here from the applicant.
All right.
Jim, there's an email from,
No, that's not them.
there's an email from Andy, earlier that said
Right.
we received our continuance, but
I think I forwarded that to the board. He might. So I will describe the project briefly, and then, as Kristen just pointed out, there was an email from the applicant requesting a continuance because they know that our engineer still needs time to review. So as you know, this site at 165 Flanders Road has been the Cumberland Farms corporate headquarters for many decades now. It used to be...
Jim, can I interrupt you, though?
Yes.
If you introduce this, does Hazel have to sign the Mullen
Yes, she
waiver?
will.
Okay, got it. Go ahead, then.
165, did you have a
Do
question?
we want to do this then?
That's up to you.
Well, I think it was, if the applicant's not here and we can avoid the, because
That's fine with me.
My concern is that Hazel may miss another
Yep,
meeting.
that's
and-
fine with me.
All right, so I think we should just continue this.
At the
without
request of the
discussion.
applicant.
All right, I do have a request from the applicant to continue this. Dated December 20th, 2022, to the Planning Board, Town of Westborough. Attention, Jim Robbins, Planning Director, regarding EG America, 165 Flanders Road. Dear Mr. Robbins, on behalf of EG America, we would like to request a continuance of the Planning Board hearing for their project at 165 Flanders Road, scheduled for tonight, December 20th, 2022, until the January 17th, 2023 hearing. If you should have any questions or require additional information, please do not hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, Bowler, Andrew Platt from Bowler Engineering, on behalf of the applicant. Any questions on that? Do we have a motion?
I move that the planning board continue the public hearing for the site plan review application of 165 Flanders Road to Tuesday, January 17, 2023 at 6:30 PM as requested by the applicant.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? That's 4-0 in favor of continuing that hearing. Okay, next item on the agenda is
190 to 212, and you have a request for continuance.
okay, so we're going to do the Oak Street yeah, so let's skip over that item on Oak Street because he gave us one letter for both continuances. So let's go straight to the continuation of the public hearing for the earth moving permit at 25 Gleason Street. Gentlemen, actually, Jim, comments?
Yes, thank you very much. So, Mr. Chairman, you have tonight, I know Mike Scott is here representing the applicant and his counsel is here as well. As you know, at the last time that we heard the public hearing, and it's been continued to this evening, the applicant required more time to delineate the wetlands as well as to survey the property. That has been complete, and I know the applicant wishes to resume his testimony to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good evening. My name is Adam Brodsky, and I represent Milford Stone Company, which is in a joint venture with the Ward family with respect to this. And obviously, you know Michael Scott, our registered engineer. And I'll turn it over to Michael to bring you up to speed.
Okay, Michael Scott, Land Design Collaborative. As Jim said, I think we were here in June or July or August. It's been several months. At that meeting, the conservation agent, Ms. Wittes, commented that during the commission's walk of the site that they had identified some areas beyond the delineated limits of the wetlands that appeared to be wetland, and asked that Ecotech, Art Allen, the environmental scientist for Milford Stone, revisit the site. He flagged several areas on the property, and then Feldman Survey subsequently went to the site, located the wetlands, and then over the course of 2.5 months, when they finally got me the drawings back, we found the wetlands had expanded somewhat significantly to the south and a little bit to the north, and it meant a redesign of the temporary measures that we had shown initially. And so in conjunction with the comments from engineering, we've revised the drawings to add more detail. And as I mentioned, these new drawings show the expanded, what are presently delineated wetlands, limits of the wetland that had been cleared and stripped about 1.5 years ago, as well as the changes to the revisions necessary to address comments from DPW. So we provided those plans along with a draft SWIP that was at the request of DPW, one of the comments, and a letter explaining how each of the comments they made were addressed in the plans or in the SWIP. And again, that went out last Tuesday. So I'm happy to walk you through any of the plan changes or describe in a general manner what we've changed, what changed on the site relative to the wetlands. But I will say that when I was out there about a month ago, it's pretty evident that there's been no work at the site. The wetland is slowly generating itself without any work, but it is still, the site is still essentially bare and waiting for the restoration work, which could hopefully happen, this April and May, if we can get there. So if you would like to go through the plans or changes or have any questions, I'm happy to do that.
I'm sorry, are you
Go ahead,
turning
Jim.
it to me? Okay, sorry, thank you. So, Mike, a question. Are you stating that you don't want to proceed until May? Maybe I misunderstood you.
For the restoration work of
Yes.
the wetland area, the ideal season would,
Okay.
to clear the rock out and get the area prepped.
Okay.
It would be nice if that happened sooner, but the restoration work really is going to start, the planting and that hardcore work is going to start in the spring after the thaw when the vegetation can be planted. But it would be excellent to have this wrapped up as soon as possible. Obviously, they have to line up materials, equipment, manpower, and so on. So knowing what the scope of work is and knowing that it's set is important.
Okay. a couple other comments then through the chair. I haven't had a chance to review your new plans, and I haven't had a chance to meet with the town engineer to discuss any of her comments forthcoming. I know you've had a chance to speak with her, not about the new plans, but the previous plans. And I'd like to have an opportunity to do a more thorough review on this. However, in the interim, I know you received a letter that I forwarded to you from the Conservation Commission, and it has to do with earth moving and the restored elevation to the property above the mean high groundwater level. And obviously, you're not going to be able to meet the standard. I know that you probably would request a waiver. The Conservation Commission is open to that waiver in a letter from the commission. So I think that you should work with the town engineer to determine what you think is the appropriate elevation and request that waiver. Additionally, I know that you received a letter from Fred Leonardo, who is our Community Development Director, and I think you're the acting conservation agent at current, because we don't have a current conservation agent. So I want to make sure that you have that. If for some reason you don't have that, I want it to get to you.
We got comments from the town boards, and that went out from your office, including Mr. Leonardo.
Okay, good.
All right. Any questions? Lisa?
I just want to remind you that I requested this to go to the third-party reviewer at this point, since we don't have a conservation agent anymore, and unless it is the site, I am requesting it to go to timeline, which I believe we already have in the change and proposing. Just so you know, that might have to be approved by your client.
No.
Mr. Chairman, we haven't seen the proposal, so we don't know what the scope of work of the peer review. So if we could have that information, we'd be happy to share it with the client.
Yep. Sure. Yeah, so the new, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut in.
Go ahead, Jim.
So the peer review scope will be based on the new submittal that Mike has provided. I don't have a scope yet for you to review. As soon as I have it, you'll get it.
Thank you. So review the project for compliance with the earth moving bylaw.
Correct. I'm sure the Conservation Commission will have their own consultant when you get to them, because you're going to need an updated order of conditions from Conservation.
Well, this was, the work is being done under an enforcement order.
That's right. So we don't need an order of conditions. It will be done pursuant to the enforcement order.
Okay, understood. So Lisa, did you hear that? All right, so as soon as we get a scope of services from Time Bond, you'll receive it. And once you've approved it, it'll come back to me. The board has allowed me to be their agent in endorsing the contract to move forward.
Okay, understood. We're all set. I mean, we can't really work that out tonight until...
So the only thing that could be accomplished tonight is for you to present any new changes in the plan.
Right, and that's what we figured, just find out where things stand. Again, I saw the letter from Lisa that there may be a request to go to the peer review.
Okay. But I don't know what to tell the board on a continuation date. Do you want to give us a continuation through January 17th and then see what progress has been made?
Yes, it will really depend on how quickly Time Bond can get up to speed and provide its services.
Yeah, they won't have anything to you sooner than January 17th, I'm sure.
It would be ideal to have a site walk with them if that's permissible prior to their review, and obviously with attendance from anyone from DPW or Conservation or the board, just so there can be sort of a on-the-ground, common-sense conversation about what happened.
Yep.
There's obviously some history here that's odd at best, which might
Benefit from a sidewalk.
A conversation in the field might benefit
Yeah.
the reviewer rather than looking
So
at
their
it.
scope generally includes a visit to the site.
So if we could be invited or involved, that would be ideal.
Sure, and
Again,
they-
well, obviously, it'd be fine, beneficial if someone from the town was there to hear the conversation, but
Yeah, I can attend that. I'm sure the town engineer, maybe Fred will want to attend that, or if we have a conservation agent at that time, they'll want to attend that. We'll also invite the commission if they want to attend, meaning the Conservation Commission. Generally, time bond scope
Yeah.
includes a meeting with the planning board in addition to a site visit. So if you feel that you need more than that, like if you look at their scope and say, really, we need more than one meeting with them, I'm sure that they'll update their scope for that. Okay. Thank you, Lisa.
Do you need anybody from the board?
I'm going to invite, I'm going to extend the invitation to the board when we do the site walk.
Okay. I don't want to have to post a meeting for it, so first two people to respond will get that. All right, what else? Anything? We'll just do the continuance at this point. It is a public hearing, though, so is there anyone here from the public who wishes to speak and address the board on this? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Everybody's ready for that? Great.
I move that the planning board continue the public hearing for the earth-moving special permit for 25 Gleason Street to Tuesday, January 17, 2023 at 6:30 PM as requested by the applicant.
Second.
Any discussion of that motion? All those in favor of continuance? That's 4-0. We'll see you on the 17th. Have a great holiday.
Happy holidays to everyone.
Yes, thank you. Happy holidays.
All right, we have two more items on the agenda, and we have a request for a continuance on both in the form of one letter, since the applicant on both is the same. It's from Ansari Builders dated December 18th, addressed to Jim Robbins, Town Planner. We hereby request a continuance of the following two public hearings scheduled for November 20th to a meeting scheduled in late January 2023. And one is Hana Place, and two is 1 Gleason Street, AKA Village Commons, and that's signed Farouk Ansari, who's the owner. I don't want to have any discussion on this because I don't want Hazel to have to sign a mullet on this, so I will entertain a motion to continue.
I move that the planning board continue the public hearing to modify special permit T-OV number 2014-1 for Village Commons at 1 Gleason Street to Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023 at 6:30 PM as requested by the applicant.
Second. Can we just loop in the other one?
Say that again?
Can we also include Oak Street with that? Do you have to do them separate?
Yeah, I think we should do them separately, just to record the vote separately. I also apologize if anyone from the public was here to address the board. You'll have to come back on the 20th, or the 17th.
Third. Oh, I said the 3rd. Was it supposed to be the 17th?
He had requested late January, so with your permission, can we amend that motion to the 17th?
Yes.
And you're still seconding that?
Yep,
Okay.
second that.
So we have a motion to continue that to the 17th. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is 4-0 in favor of continuing that. Peter, do you want to make that other motion as well, or anybody here?
Which one here, this one? 19212?
Right.
Yep. I move that the planning board continue to the public hearing for the site plan review application for 19212 Oak Street to Tuesday, January 17, 2023 at 6:30 PM as requested by the applicant.
Second.
Any discussion of that motion? All those in favor? That is 4-0 in favor of continuing that. All right, I think that's everything on the agenda.
I wanted to mention that the town engineer's daughter, Julia, is here auditing the planning board meeting.
Nice. Thank you for coming. Gentlemen, is there anything in particular you wanted to address the board on, or you're just here out of curiosity?
Yeah, I was involved in the library project as far as the revote and this kind of thing. And so it looks like what you guys do here at the planning board is all new construction pretty much, or demolition, reconstruction. So I don't know if you guys are involved with the library remodel or town building remodel.
We're not involved with the planning of that. We're more involved with rezoning. Anytime a municipal building, anytime any municipal property is built on, the planning board has to make a recommendation on setbacks, side yards, so on, and that is a zoning amendment.
So like, and then I guess for the library project, it was like an eminent domain issue with the church next door, or they were gonna.
No, the library wasn't going to leave their lot at all. The addition was going to stay inside their lot. It was only going to, they were asking for a 0 setback, but I believe in essence, the closest they were getting to the lot line was 3 feet.
And then another question is on the Westborough Climate Action Plan. Do you guys have anything to do with meeting their requirements, or how that gets put into effect, or how it gets perhaps rescinded, the process?
Yeah, I mean, we're not the board that adopted that. They made, well, I believe it was adopted by town meeting? Or was it the select?
If I can, through you.
Go ahead.
So the Climate Action Plan is part of the town's master plan. If you wanted to see that, you can look at the town master plan. It's online at the town website, but the planning board doesn't have any authority in adopting anything or carrying it out. Are you interested in construction and construction-related projects? Is that it?
Well, currently I'm interested in the library project. So it started out at the 36 million.
The library project was defeated at town meeting.
Right. But anyways, it was a $10 million or so grant kind of thing. Their plan B was $20 million. And so it seems to be that they're stuck on the $20 million plan kind of thing. And I thought that the best way to go about the thing was to, as long as you try to stay away from the ADA requirements of the state of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
They have their own building committee. It's not
Jim,
us. We're
Jim,
not.
can I interrupt? I'm sorry. I never got your name and address. We're supposed to get that for the record. And-
Boyd Conklin, 8 Water Street.
Great, thanks, Boyd. I feel like this wasn't on our agenda, so maybe we're getting a little off topic. You know, I don't mind spending time with you on this. If you have questions on it, be happy to entertain those individually. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to, it's a pretty important issue, and I understand, you know, I appreciate your desire to investigate it, but I'm not sure you're in the right place. So, you know, again, I don't think it's really anything we need to get too into tonight. Jim, do you have anything?
No, I have no further comment on that.
Okay. All right.
Can I just say one thing? Just make a compliment to Jim. It's going to be tough to replace him. He seems to know a lot tonight.
Yeah, we're aware of that, so.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. That's very nice of you to say. Thank you.
Well, believe me, it takes a long time on this board to even get a clue. So without his help, I don't think I would have any clue what we're doing, so.
I don't think so. You're doing pretty good.
Not sure I still have a clue what we're doing, but, all right, gentlemen, I don't see anything else on the agenda. Jim, did you have anything that we missed?
No, I just want to say happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and everything in between.
Yeah.
Thank you. Minutes.
Oh, we do have minutes, yeah, and Hazel's not here, so we have minutes. Let me get back to, I don't have the dates in front of me.
First,
I'm sorry, what dates?
November 1st and 15th, and then I just sent out December 6th.
Okay, so we have meeting minutes for 3 meetings from November 1st, November 15th, and December 6th. Did everybody get a chance to review those and comment on any?
I only looked at November 1st and November 15th. I didn't look at the 6th yet.
Okay, so why don't we just discuss the 1st and the 15th, and we'll wait on the 6th. Kristen, if you could make a note to put that on the next agenda, but any changes or comments on the 1st or the 15th? I will make a motion to approve the minutes from November 1st and November 15th.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? That's 4-0 in favor. Don't think there's anything else. We do have, as I said at the beginning, we do have to form a search committee. That will be our obligation. And so I don't want to discuss it too much tonight, but at our next meeting, we'll have a proposal for what that committee formation will be, and hopefully a job description to approve.
In January, yeah.
To send out and try and get somebody in a timely fashion to come on board. I've also asked the town manager to assist in that process, but also I've talked with Jim a little bit about staying on in a consulting role after his retirement for a short period of time.
Yeah, short period of time.
Yeah.
Short.
Indefinitely?
6 months to 5 years.
Short.
All right, for a period of time.
Yep, a period of time, that's good.
To help us
Just the transition.
with that transition.
And I will create a transition plan so that any project that's ongoing, any project that's been reviewed and may come forward, I will provide details and what the requirements are for the board, so the board will know. So like any of these projects, if they're still open, there'll probably be a couple of them that'll still be open, so that the planner will know where we are and so the board will know what to do next.
Just to update everybody on the master plan implementation, a couple of site plan regulations we might want to consider. One we talked about a little bit tonight, which is any new projects with excess sewer capacity, returning that capacity to the town. There was a discussion on requiring EV charging stations at new projects. There was also discussion of a scenic roads bylaw and a, oh gosh, I'm getting old, right to farm bylaw.
Yeah.
To encourage small farms in town. And
We had a scenic road bylaw. When I first came here, the Department of Public Works instituted a scenic road bylaw, and I honestly don't know what happened to it. I haven't seen anything of it probably 25 years. So, but I know the town looked at it. We just need to find it. The clerk might have some reference to it. But in your subdivision rules and regs, it talks about maintaining stone walls adjacent to the road, maintaining mature trees that are above 12 inches in caliper. So it addresses some of the things that would be included in a scenic bylaw, but it's not a scenic road bylaw. So I think that's good. That's a good idea, because you have several roads that would probably qualify.
well, those were reportedly high priority items in the master plan, so it's something we should start working on. I think they're relatively, I don't want to say cost-free, but low cost.
Yes, low cost.
And reflective of the master plans, just, again, a small section, but at least we're getting something done. The other update was on the MBTA zoning, the housing choice zoning. The town has to file an action plan with the state by the end of January. And that's really just,
Filling out a form.
outline of what our plan is to introduce any new zoning, and I think it's basically going to be, we're going to modify the DPOD and the TOV so that we conform with the state's requirements rather than special permits. Those will end up being by right. We'll probably make them smaller so that fewer lots are included in that. And then we'll just roll it out as a regular zoning change with a public hearing and shoot for hopefully the fall town meeting.
Affordable housing, is there any provision for affordable housing in that?
In the master plan?
Oh, in the zoning district for MBTA communities?
Yeah.
We can do it, but we don't have to.
Yeah, we're allowed to do what we previously had in those zones but we have to actually prove to the state that it's economically viable. So since those were 20% zoning, we can't include a 20% affordability provision. I think the fact that we've had projects built in those districts with 20% affordable, to me, that's sufficient to prove that it's economically viable. But you never know what the state's going to ask us for there. So we're, again, we're going to have discussions on that affordability component, but right now it is 20% affordable in both of those districts.
You would think the state would want it. You would think that the state would say you will have at least 10%, let's say, affordable housing, but they're silent on it.
My understanding is they are not allowing more than 10%.
And that's because it's a barrier to construction?
We had our technical assistance kickoff meeting today with MHP, and I asked the question, and they were like, is it more than 10%? I said, no, it's at 10%.
Yeah, well, that's not the way I read it. It's, we have the opportunity to stay at our 20% if we can prove it's economically viable.
I just want to make sure that there's some component for affordable.
They're not really clear on what. Yeah.
Not really clear on the
They just don't want an onerous requirement that will prevent anything, that will essentially be, 50% affordable that would prevent any developer from actually doing anything. I mean, I think we're going to structure the zone in a way that it will, the 20% affordable will be an economically viable threshold. Anyway, we'll develop that action plan, and I think the town manager is the one who actually has to file that action plan, so we may want to discuss that on one of our 2 January meetings, though,
So let's put it on the first meeting to discuss, and then by the second meeting, we can act on our recommendations to the town manager and put together the form, and then we'll present it to her.
Yeah.
That gives her time.
I won't be here for the first meeting.
Sorry?
I won't be here for the first meeting.
Okay.
All right, well, I've got a PowerPoint I can send to you, and you can weigh in directly to me if you have any questions on it.
All right.
Or weigh in through Jim. I'm not sure what's appropriate on that.
I can send Jim a letter.
Yeah, I can distribute it to the board.
All right, what I'll do is I'll send the PowerPoint to Jim, and he can distribute it, probably after the meeting that we discussed.
So right now, it's not an item on the agenda. You guys can talk all you want until it's a posted item. So you can send John or any of the board members. I'd suggest send it to all of them. I have it too, but you can talk about it that way before it gets on the agenda. And you're not in violation of the open meeting law.
Fair enough. I will send it out and look for suggestions on the concepts that we're discussing. So, all right. What else? I'm not too sure that's true, Jim, because we have a discussion on the Housing Choice Act here, so maybe...
I'll just take it off the next agenda.
Okay. All right. I just don't want anyone to accuse us of violating open meeting law. And anything we decide on that zoning is going to be discussed in
Sounds good.
in length at several hearings, I'm sure. Okay, what else? I guess that's it. If anybody wants to make a motion.
I would encourage the board to follow the master plan implementation. There are 3 working groups, and I'm going to call them working groups, not subcommittees, because again, that's a term in the open meeting law. So I'm going to call them working groups that have created outlines for their sections, and that is public information. So I think what we'll do is we'll keep the planning board up to date on those working groups so that they know what's going on.
Okay, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is 4-0 in favor.
Thank you.
Great holiday, everyone. Thank you so much.